Welcome to Garden Crafts, where every bottle you thought was trash might just be your garden's next best friend. In today's journey, we invite you to explore the most charming and whimsical DIY planter ideas, all made from plastic bottles you already have at home. From sleepy chicks and grinning frogs to rainbow-faced bottle buddies, each creation is a gentle reminder that recycling can be magical. We've combined warmth, imagination, and real-life practicality so that every viewer, young or old, can find joy in turning waste into wonder. Whether you're a parent looking for a weekend project, a teacher crafting with your students, or simply someone seeking inspiration in small green spaces, this collection is for you. If these ideas bring a smile to your face or spark your next garden transformation, don't forget to subscribe to Garden Crafts, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear which little bottle buddy stole your heart. Let's keep reusing, keep creating, and let our gardens grow with charm, one bottle at a time. It began with a plastic bottle, a clear one that once held water and now held potential. In the quiet hum of Saturday morning, Ellen spread out her tools on the kitchen table. Scissors, paint, a golden twist of foil for the horn. The bottle would become something softer, more magical. With each brushstroke, sleepy lashes appeared, curling delicately beneath a pair of painted, blushing cheeks. She cut the top open and filled it with dark, rich soil. Then came the microgreens, quick to sprout, quick to please. Arugula, radish, and mustard seeds tucked gently inside like secret dreams. Within a few days, they began to peek out like tufts of green hair, wild and playful. This unicorn didn't gallop, but it did sit proudly by her kitchen window, soaking in morning light. The gold cord tied around its middle shimmered just a little when the breeze passed through the window screen. It wasn't a toy, nor a mere decoration. It was a living reminder of what could happen when you saw beyond what something was and imagined what it might be. A child's fantasy mixed with an adult's purpose. From trash, something gentle was born, and when visitors came, they always paused. "Is that unicorn?" They'd ask, and Ellen would smile. It was more than that. It was a tiny garden with eyelashes and a name, Sprout. In a quiet corner of the balcony, something tender swings with the wind. It's yellow and sleepy-eyed, with a beak the color of clementines and a sprout of mint feathering from its crown. This little chick, once just a discarded bottle, has been reborn in the gentle hands of a child, nestled inside a metal strainer that once held rice, now holding life. Mira had painted the face with care. "She's dreaming," she whispered as she dabbed on two little half-moons her eyes. A puff of cotton gave it feathers, and with a loop of twine and a loving knot, the bottle hung like a cradle in the sky. Underneath it, basil grew in a tin cup, and a wind chime clinked a lullaby. It wasn't a project just for cuteness, though that was part of it. It was about noticing small things, about looking at a bottle not as waste, but as potential. The chick planter became a tiny guardian of the garden nook, catching sunlight in the late afternoon and reminding everyone that joy often comes softly, swinging on a rope. Neighbors walking by would glance up and smile. Children pointed. "Is that a bird?" someone asked once. Mira only nodded, but in her heart it was more. It was a chick that never hatched but still found a place to perch. A sleepy companion, a lesson in care, a second life with green wings. The fence used to be plain, just faded planks and peeling paint. But one quiet afternoon, that changed. With brushes in hand and laughter in the air, a family gave it with a new job, to hold joy. Each bottle planter began as a smile. Some were wide and toothy, others bashful with pink cheeks. A few were even cheeky with tongues sticking out. Plastic bottles once tossed aside now dangled proudly like cartoonish portraits, upside down and bursting with green curls of mint, parsley, and thyme. Their faces told stories of silliness, of sunshine, of rainy afternoons spent crafting in garage. Hanging from jute cords nailed carefully into place, they transformed a fence into something more than a barrier. It became a gallery of grins. When the wind blew, the planters swayed gently, their leafy hair rustling like laughter shared between old friends. Children passing by often stopped. Some waved at the faces. Others gave them names. "That one's Rosie," one said. pointing to a planter with red lips and purple chive hair. For the family, the garden had shifted. It no longer existed just to grow herbs. It had become a wall of personalities, a parade of reused joy. And every morning, as the sun peeked over the trees, it lit up those smiling bottles one by one, like turning on lights in a tiny town that never stopped grinning. The garden grew, not just in leaves, but in laughter. There was something about its grin, unapologetically big, open and full of life, perched just beside the kitchen window. The green bottle-turned planter seemed to beam at everyone who passed. It had a face that couldn't be ignored. Wide, googly eyes, a cheeky smile, tiny arms stretched out like it was always waiting for a hug. Inside it, an aloe vera plant stood tall, its pointed leaves reaching upward like hair slicked with wild energy. The bottle swung gently on its macrame cradle, catching the morning light that slipped through the curtains. You could almost imagine it speaking, saying something silly or warm, like a garden gnome's more modern cousin. Tom had made it with his son during a quiet weekend. The two of them gathered leftover bottles, decals, and rope and let their imagination do the rest. "Let's make this one a superhero," the boy had said, cutting wings from a cereal box. And so, the green bottle became more than a planter. It became part of the family's little team of backyard guardians. What had once been tossed into the recycling bin now cradled something healing. Aloe for sunburns, aloe for cuts, useful, simple, natural. And every time Tom reached to snip a leaf, he found himself smiling back at that happy face. It reminded him that joy didn't have to be bought, that sometimes it grew in bottles. Sometimes it was painted with a child's hand and hung on a string. And on days when the sun was shy and everything felt still, that silly little grin still held its shape. A green whisper of hope on the windowsill. It was quiet in the garden when the cat appeared, painted, not purring, but no less full of presence. She hung gently from a braided macrame rope, suspended like a secret, near the kitchen's sunniest window. Her eyes were drawn shut, like she was in the middle of a nap she didn't want to end. Blush marked her cheeks, and thin painted whiskers curled around the edges of her little smile. From the top of her head, mint leaves burst like wild green fur. Ellen called her Parsley Paws, even though she wasn't growing parsley. The planter had been born from an afternoon of tinkering. A water bottle that was destined for the bin had been sliced in two, sanded smooth, and given a second life with white paint, black pen, and a pair of foam ears. It wasn't loud in its charm. It was soft. The way its pink cheeks glowed in the sun, the way the macrame knots caught light like beads. The herbs inside thrived, perhaps nourished by the joy in the making. Every few days, Ellen would snip a sprig for tea or a garnish and whisper, "Thank you, Kitty," before the planter resumed its quiet watch. Visitors noticed. "That's adorable," someone said, reaching out to touch it gently. But Ellen didn't correct them. It wasn't just adorable. It was a whisper of what could be done with time, care, and a little imagination. A bottle, a brush, and a bit of rope. That's all it took to bring something still to life again. In a world where everything rushes, the kitty stayed still and bloomed. In one sunny nook of the garden, something extraordinary takes place each afternoon. A fashion show, but not the kind you'd find on glossy runways. This one is stitched together with scraps, held with glue, and worn by the unlikeliest of models, bottles that once knew only the bottom of the recycling bin. They stand proudly now in a row, each with its own personality. A yellow fedora atop a pink-painted bottle that always seems to smile. A chic little number in polka dots, trimmed with lace from an old curtain. One bottle sports a tiny black bowler hat, its wide eyes outlined in marker, its mouth curled into a smirk. Together, they form a gathering of characters that feels more like a garden club than a DIY project. Ellen called them the Hat Parade. She didn't intend to make so many, but each time she finished one, it seemed to ask for a friend. A splash of ribbon here, a sparkle of leftover beads there. Every detail gave life to a new member of the crowd. What had started as a whim became a ritual. On Saturday mornings, she'd sit with her box of craft odds and ends and create. These weren't just planners. They were little ambassadors of reuse and imagination. each cradling tufts of rosemary, parsley, or lavender like floral hair. When visitors strolled past the garden's edge, they couldn't help but laugh. A tea party? One joked. Maybe. Or maybe it was a gathering of those who'd been thrown away and found their purpose again, with flair. And as the breeze tipped one bottle's sun hat to the side, Ellen smiled. Even trash, it seemed, could strut. In the dappled shade of the garden's edge, where mint thrives in the cooler breeze and shadows stretch a little longer, a raccoon grins beneath a coil of rope. Of course, it isn't real, not in the usual sense. This raccoon is shaped from a soda bottle, painted carefully in bold strokes of blue, black, and white. But somehow, it still has that glint, that knowing, playful charm raccoons always seem to carry. Ellen placed it by the fence near the barbecue corner, where laughter and grilling often meet. Twine hugs its middle like a belt, adding texture, and two painted paws rest on either side of its plump body. The eyes, black and wide, peek from beneath their painted mask, mischief frozen mid-blink. From the opening at the top, mint grows wild and fragrant, catching sunbeams and sending whispers of coolness through the summer air. Children passing through call him Bandit. Adults admire his odd charm. He's a conversation starter, a garden guardian, and a reminder that trash can still hold delight. The tail, striped and curling behind, was cut from leftover cardboard and colored with the same detail as the rest. It sways when the breeze stirs. More than just decor, the raccoon planter brings warmth to the garden's edge. He fits naturally among the herbs and wood textures, as if he's always been there, just waiting to make someone smile. And when the day grows quiet and the leaves rustle low, Bandit keeps watch with a crooked grin and a sprig of mint for a crown. Mischief, it seems, can be good for the garden. It looked like it was laughing, and maybe it was the bottle, once a dull shade of green and destined for landfill, now wore the brightest expression in the backyard. Big round eyes made from mismatched googly stickers, cheeks touched with pink paint, and a grin so wide it seemed impossible not to smile back. From its crown grew a fountain of green, lettuce so fresh it quivered in the breeze, its leaves crisp, curly, and beaming with health. The planter swung from jute string tied between two old colanders turned into makeshift baskets. Light filtered through the leaves above, dappling the scene in soft, moving patches. You couldn't walk past it without noticing. You couldn't notice without feeling just a little lighter inside. Mira had crafted the planter on a whim. It had been a long day, and her daughter had asked, "Can we make something silly?" Out came the paints, the scissors, and the quiet laughter of shared imagination. What emerged wasn't just a planter. It was a mood captured in plastic and lettuce. A happy face cradling a living salad. Now it danced in the garden, whispering its joy to passers-by. Some waved, others giggled, but all understood. That little bottle didn't just grow greens. It grew smiles. It reminded them that gardening didn't need to be elegant or even tidy. It could be joyful, messy, ridiculous, alive. And as Mira harvested the outer leaf for lunch, she gave the planter a pat on its side. "Thank you, buddy," she said softly. In return, it grinned, nestled quietly in the garden, swaying ever so slightly with the breath of the breeze. The sleepy chick rests. She doesn't chirp. She doesn't flap. She simply floats. Her eyes gently closed, her round yellow face painted with serenity, and her cotton-padded body soft to the gaze. The bottle had once held soda. It had rolled beneath the porch, forgotten, until little Aina found it, and with her small hands and a box of art supplies, breathed life into it once more. She painted it pale like sunlight, dabbed on sleepy lashes with the tip of a brush, and pressed fluff to its sides like feathers. A piece of orange foam, cut crookedly, became the beak, and from the top, soft green parsley pushed its way upward like a tiny crown. The planter found its home in a metal kitchen strainer, hung from twine beside the vegetable patch. It didn't clamor for attention. It simply waited, gently bobbing in the afternoon wind. To Aina, it was more than a craft. It was a pet she could water, a dream she could grow. Parents visiting the school garden pointed and chuckled. "It's asleep," they'd say, and Aina would nod with pride. She only wakes up when the herbs grow long enough to tickle her beak. It became a quiet friend in the rhythm of the day, rising with the dew, glowing beneath the sunset. A soft symbol of what gentle hands and imagination can do. A planter made not just to hold a plant, but to teach something slower, something softer, that rest is beautiful, and that even the smallest things can feel alive again. There was something regal about it. An elephant, not of ivory or stone, but of plastic reborn. Its body, once a simple gray bottle, now wore the features of the wild. Wide, soft ears that fluttered slightly when the wind passed, a curling trunk that hung low, and eyes painted with the quiet wisdom only elephants seem to carry. Ellen had designed it with care, carving gently and adding details with scraps of foam and leftover hose. She shaped the trunk so it curled just slightly, as if reaching toward something. From the bottle's back, where its cap once screwed on, a jungle of spinach grew. Lush, dark, determined. The leaves fanned upward and outward, catching rain and sunlight alike. She mounted the planter to the garden's back fence, beside climbing beans and rusted garden tools. There hung, still and kind, watching the days roll by. Children passing by were enchanted. One of them whispered, "It looks like it's listening." And maybe it was. The elephant planter became something more than decoration. It became a quiet character in the rhythm of garden life. Its eyes seemed to follow the sun. Its trunk, repurposed from a bottle handle, could even hold a drip of water for thirsty leaves below. It served no great function, perhaps, but its presence softened the fence, brought story to the space. And in that way, the bottle, meant to be tossed away, stood proudly, not forgotten, not silent, but filled with life. Its trunk never trumpeted. But it didn't need to. It simply existed kindly, reminding all who saw it that beauty doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just grows. He didn't need to be big to be clever. Just a sliver of bright orange plastic, some paint, and a touch of mischief. That's all it took for this little fox to make his home in the quiet corner of the garden wall. He peered out from his perch, his eyes wide with curiosity, as if he might leap down and dart into the herbs if he looked away. Ellen had made him one Saturday afternoon, the kind where time slows and the air smells like sun-warm mint. The bottle had been a perfect size, narrow, light, just enough room for a bundle of curly parsley. She painted it bold orange, giving him a white snout, blue eyes, and foam ears that perked up with a slight bend. Two tiny paws painted at the base gave the illusion he was hugging the air around him. He didn't take up much room, just a hook, a cord, and a little light, but he transformed the small space. What had been a bare stretch of fence now had life, story, and whimsy. Even the neighbors commented, "That fox is watching us." They joked, and perhaps he was. Because every garden, no matter how small, deserves something watchful, something witty. The planter didn't just hold herbs, it held charm. A burst of character in a bottle that would have otherwise been forgotten. And each time Ellen watered the parsley, she whispered, "Good morning, little fox," and gave his painted nose a tap. In return, he gave back mischief and green. Not a bad trait. After all, there's something deeply satisfying about growing your own food, especially when the garden hangs in the air and hums with possibility. This wasn't a grand vegetable plot or a raised bed. It was a bottle, one that had once held sweet tea on a hot day. Now it cradled bok choy. Ellen had cut the bottle carefully, smoothing the edges with sandpaper and giving the surface a coat of soft mint green. She nestled it into a cream enamel bowl, the kind found in old kitchens, and tied thick jute rope through 2 drill holes. It hung like a cradle beneath her balcony pergola. Inside, rich soil held tight to young roots. Bok choy leaves pushed upward, bright green and determined, their freshness glistening with morning dew. The planter swung gently with the wind, catching specks of sunlight that danced on its sides like quiet applause. From below, the enamel bowl reflected a gentle glow. Visitors were surprised. "You're growing vegetables in that?" Ellen would nod, smiling. "Enough for a stir-fry," she'd say, plucking a leaf. It wasn't just a planter. It was a lesson in space, in reuse, in the quiet victory of self-sufficiency. The planter reminded her that gardening didn't need to be big or showy. It could be humble, suspended, made from something forgotten. And every time she watered it, watching droplets pool on the thick green leaves, she felt rooted even above ground. This tiny hanging garden, swinging softly in the breeze, held more than vegetables. It held intention, care, and a little defiance. In a world that throws away so much, here was something that chose to grow. Somewhere along the old fence line, just above the sprouting mint, and beside the string of drying marigolds, a little koala holds on. His arms, soft gray cardboard cutouts, are stretched in a gentle embrace, clinging not to a eucalyptus tree, but to a plank of cedar worn by sun and seasons. He doesn't blink, doesn't speak, but with his closed, contented eyes and pink swirled cheeks, he tells you something nonetheless, that even trash, when offered a second chance, can bring calm. Ellen had made him after spotting an empty soda bottle left near the recycling bin. Something about its shape seemed to whisper, koala. She painted the surface in layers of gray and silver, dabbed on a black button nose, and softened the ears with felt. Into the top, she nestled a tuft of wild grass, just messy enough to look natural. It wasn't just cute, it was grounding. The koala planter gave the garden a new kind of life. Quiet life. Life that didn't bloom brightly or climb high, but simply held on. Its twine-wrapped belly hugged the fence post with dignity, even as the wind passed and petals fell. Children visiting the garden reached up to pet the planter, giggling at its sleepy smile. One called it Mr. Nap, and the name stuck. Now he watches over the herbs below, doing nothing and everything. A koala who teaches, silently, the art of stillness, the importance of holding on, and the joy of turning a bottle into something that clings not to trash, but to tenderness. It started with one face, a bottle turned upside down, painted yellow with a big winking eye and a pink foam tongue sticking out the side. Ellen hung on a piece of rope lattice beside the back gate, just to see how it would look. Then another followed, and another. Before long, the fence bloomed with a full-blown rainbow of personalities. There was a red one with freckles and gapped teeth, the green one with sleepy eyes, the blue one that looked a little shy. Each bottle, once bound for the bin, now hung proudly, filled with parsley, thyme, or even creeping baby's tears. The herbs grew down, curling and swaying, transforming discarded plastic into a hairdo of edible greens. The wall became a mural, a parade of expression, laughter without words. Children stopped to count them. Adults paused to photograph them. It's like a bottle carnival, one neighbor said. And truly, it was a celebration of creativity, color, and care. Every few days, Ellen would water them gently, spritzing the roots from above, watching the droplets slide past goofy smiles and onto hungry herbs. She never made two bottles alike. Each had a different personality, just like the people who passed by, some shy, some bold, all growing. The garden wall was no longer just wood and nails. It was joy. It was proof that fun didn't have to be perfect or polished, that a little whimsy, upside down and smiling, could be exactly what a backyard needed to feel alive. And in the evening, when the sun dipped low and wind chimes danced, the rainbow crew swayed in rhythm, bottles reborn, faces grinning, garden blooming. Twilight brings a hush to the garden. The sun sinks behind the treetops, and shadows stretch long and soft. That's when the owl wakes. It doesn't hoot or flap its wings. Instead, it glows quietly from within. Once a simple plastic bottle, now reshaped and reimagined, this owl perches on the edge of the herb bed. Its wide, bottle-cap eyes see everything. Its feathers, drawn with care in looping lines and painted with soft metallic tones, shimmer under the last blush of daylight. Inside, a small LED candle flickers warmly, casting gentle light across the wood and leaves. Ellen crafted the owl on a whim one rainy afternoon, wrapping the bottle in earth tones and gluing on wings cut from old grocery bags. She carved a window into the belly and filled it with rosemary, a small, fragrant treasure that turned the lantern into a living sculpture. The idea had come from an old children's book about garden spirits. She smiled now, remembering. Each evening, the owl lantern came alive, not loudly, not boastfully, but with quiet elegance. It watched over the garden bed like a guardian of dreams. Children adored it. They whispered to it. One even left a tiny stone gift beneath its perch. The owl didn't ask for much, just a bit of bottle, a bit of light, and something green to hold, and in return it gave magic, subtle, slow, real. In the stillness of dusk, it reminded Ellen of the power in watching gently, of staying rooted yet bright. A bottle, reborn not just as a planter, but as a keeper of calm. It didn't croak or leap or sit on lily pads, but it grinned, wide, silly, and utterly unbothered by the chaos of the world around it. The frog bottle planter became the garden's most cheerful guest. Made from a recycled soda bottle, it wore its green coat proudly. Ellen had painted it in swirls of light and mossy greens, dotted here and there with black spots like splashes of mischief. 2 bottle caps became its eyes, popped slightly above the surface with wide pupils staring in different directions. It looked like it might hop off the wall at any moment, but it never did. It simply sat there, holding a crown of mint that grew taller each week. The planter rested on a low ledge near the watering station. Children adored it. That's Froggers, one had declared, and the name stuck. They watered him first before any other plants, making sure his hair was freshly misted, as if frogs needed hydration to stay funny. Foam feet had been cut and glued to the base, floppy and round. A curled red pipe cleaner formed the tongue, hanging just slightly from the mouth like a frog mid-yawn. But beneath the humor, there was something quietly lovely about it. The mint grew well, the soil stayed cool in the shaded nook, and the frog, it smiled through every storm. Sometimes a passerby would pause and laugh aloud. Not a mocking laugh, but a light one, the kind that reminded you to let go for a second, because in that silly green grin there was peace, joy, and proof that play has a place in every garden.